Hello, Double GDP community. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I am Nolan Myers, the CEO of Double GDP, where we are building an end-to-end platform for managing new cities. I'm coming to you today from Brazil, where I spent last week at Iguazu Falls, which is what you see in the background. It was awe-inspiring and just stunning visuals. So really beautiful place, and I highly recommend it to anybody who would like to, who is inspired by nature or water. So this week I'm going to try a different format in terms of our update. We're going to go through the goals that we aimed to accomplish last sprint, what we did against those goals, what progress we made, some highlights and lowlights, and next steps thinking about next sprint. So we really had 4 goals in our last sprint. One was our first and probably most important to me was to improve the way that we were collaborating as a team and to think about our sprint cadence and just really map out what it is that we wanted to have in terms of our key synchronous moments during the course of a 2-week sprint in the ways that we're checking in as a team. And this was because a lot of the interaction was coming, I felt like it was coming through me, and that we had sort of a hub and spoke model in terms of our collaboration that I wanted to get more to a team dynamic. So we've made some of those shifts in this sprint, and very excited to share with you some of those updates. So just going through the 4 goals then. So it was to create a more team-based approach to the collaboration and less directly through me. Start building our CRM use cases. So the core way that our customer in Kwashi thinks about interacting with their clients so that we can start improving and accelerating their sales process. Begin recruiting a full-time team, and then free up Jay's time, our head of partnerships, to be able to focus more on partnerships and less on finance because he's playing those dual roles today. On those 4 goals, I feel like we accomplished pretty much all 4 of those and then some in this sprint. And I'll show you a little bit of what we did. So on the sprint cadence, let me just share here. So on the sprint cadence, we mapped this into a 4. We have basically 5 main checkpoints through the week where we're synchronizing with the team. We have a 90-minute meeting on one Thursday and a 60-minute meeting on the alternate Thursday, and that coincides with our investor calls so that we wrap up our sprint and we have our updates at a time where we can give a good update to the investor. And now we have this follow-up meeting on Friday mornings where we actually get a chance to get feedback from the investor and share and then be able to refine our plan based on that feedback. So that's one thing I'm excited about. The other is the idea of a retrospective here. We've never really had a formal process in our development plan to be able to look back at what we've accomplished and use that as a way of improving and thinking about where we're going. The other thing that we got to pilot this week, we're modeling a little bit after GitLab here. And we have a team visit that has absolutely no agenda other than just that it has a question that we're using the same GitLab question. So I guess this is a bad demo there, but we'll start with a couple of seed questions for each team visit, just to get the conversation going, but it's a chance for us to all sort of talk with each other and get to know each other. We had our first one of those last sprint, and it went really well. The second, in terms of CRM use cases, we made a lot of progress in terms of actually building things out. We got a showroom kiosk up and running that Olivier will share in his update. We have some mapping functionality now where we can start drawing a map as polygons and overlay that on latitude and longitude coordinates and be able to show it on a map. That's going to be very useful for a registry database, being able to show the plots or what's been sold or what's not been sold on a screen for the Kwashi administrators, but also will allow us to have a view, do some really cool things for their clients so that when they go and visit the site, they can actually see where their plot is. They can go stand there. There's some really cool things that we're excited to start thinking about once we have some mapping foundations laid. And then we also sketched out what the first use cases of a CRM of a 360 view of a customer would look like. And that was what I did in this sprint. So I'll go ahead and show some of those sketches here. So this is on our MVP document here. And the sketches I started looking at just how some other CRMs lay out some of their screens and tried to model off of that, and got excited about the idea of a mobile first flow. Even for administrators who often might have access to a computer, I think a lot of the interactions that they'll have with a customer will be out in the field. So this gives them one place where they can get all the contact information for that client in one place, what plots they might be interested in or already have bought, what activity that client has had with Inkwashi, and what kind of interactions or payments that client has already participated in. We also, I didn't show it up there, but we also have a notes feature fleshed out or sketched out so that if you have an interaction with a client, you can then take some quick notes about what it is that you said, or just remember that, and that's a collaboration with the rest of the administrative team. In terms of plots, it's a way of thinking about both what plots have closed, so what do you have, what your payment plan is, when did you sign up for those plots, and different plots that you might be interested in moving forward. So if you're on the sales team, you're very focused on thinking about what plots has this person expressed interest in, and how do I help them make the decision to buy those plots. And then finally thinking about activity, a way to just, you might want to see, oh, when was the last time you visited the site? And that's the principal activity that we're tracking right now, but you could imagine other kinds of interactions with Inkwashi or things like that. So very excited about that. That's those are sprint, those are product things that we have fleshed out as sketches now, and then next sprint we'll move into design and development. The third progress, which we had not anticipated in this goal, but we accomplished, was actually getting a job description for the customer success role, and started training Mutali on this role. So this role is really focused on the weekly active user growth, and it will be a key leverage point for us to be able to help users understand how to use the application and make sure that they're getting value out of it. So we've had a few we've gone through this with Mutali and started thinking about what that might entail and setting goals around it. So excited there. And then the fourth, in terms of the hiring front, so that takes care of one hiring need on this customer success role. On the other hiring side, we now have a job board up and running. So if you go to the About Us page on our website, scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see our open positions. This is not going to be super exciting to show right now because it takes you to a default Greenhouse page, but does have a head of engineering up, posted, and allows for applications. So excited to get that up and running. And now that we have Greenhouse, we are also going to be able to move that forward a little bit more quickly and iterate and improve. Finally, in terms of goals this sprint, the fourth goal was to free up Jay's time. And in that regard, we hired Formation Financial based on recommendations from several people in our network that said that this team is really exceptional. So we brought them on board, and they'll be helping us on the accounting and finance administration side. Also thinking about taxes and how to structure our books, and sort of more on the strategic consulting side. They have a full stack financial stack, and from strategy all the way down to sort of controlling and accounting, and so we're looking forward to getting going with them. So I'll stop sharing now and talk with you a little bit about highlights, lowlights. I would say on the highlight side, super happy about some expansion that we're doing with our relationship with the Zig. First is Mutali transitioning into a customer success role. I think customer success is something that's going to be hugely valuable for us, and I'm glad that she stepped up. She ran our resiliency setup with Inkwashi and did just a great job. And so I think the customer success role is both a good learning opportunity for her and one that will be very valuable for us moving forward. We're also have a proposal to bring on another front-end engineer, and have started training Olivier more on some of the back-end and Ruby side of the application. And he's coming up to speed very quickly on that. So that relationship continues to go very well. Very excited about the new sprint cadence and the team visit call that we had. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I think the other benefit here, which we're not going to have in this sprint, but in our next sprint, will be a week ahead in terms of our cadence. So coming into the next sprint, we'll actually have a week of foresight into what our next sprint is going to look like. Whereas lately we've been doing that just the day before these updates. Another highlight is we actually have 4 candidates that have already applied for the head of engineering role, which is definitely much more than I expected to get 1 week out of the gate, and very excited, some good candidates as well. So looking forward to getting in touch with them and learning more about who they are and how they might be able to contribute to GDP. And finally, on the highlights side, we got a proposal from Muya in outlining his thinking about data and the role that it can play in building a marketplace for new cities, and the way that APIs can enable third-party app developers to build on the platform. And just so much of this is aligned with the vision that I have for GDP, and the ways that I think that we can be an end-to-end platform, but also enabling a broader ecosystem. So I was really glad to see that kind of alignment, and I think that building on this will also be just a very good unlocking way for us to start loading more data into the system and delivering more value to some of the Nkwashi clients who don't yet have access to GDP. On the lowlights, both Mark and Ahmed are going to be taking a little bit less of a role in GDP. Mark, less of a role in the next few weeks or months, focusing more on advisory, on an advisory position, and that's mainly because he wants to focus a little bit more on some family stuff that's come up. And Ahmed wants to work on some other career goals, and so he's going to be phasing out after this next sprint. In both cases, I think that we have a plan in place. Olivier picking up on some of the Ruby stuff from Mark, and adding another front-end engineer at the Zig, I think will be very helpful. We'll start recruiting for a full-time designer right away, but also may augment with contract design as available. Second lowlight is that our weekly active users are down, as are the gate logs. Right now, the gate logs, people going to the gate are the primary reason for the active users. So this is actually, those two things moving in parallel is not very surprising. And at this point, I am interpreting it primarily as end of year slowdown. It's disappointing to see numbers drop, of course. I don't know that there's anything structurally wrong, but it's certainly on the radar and something that I'm thinking about. On the plus side there, I am very excited about the customer success role, and really having a concerted emphasis on thinking about how to get new clients engaged and helping them use GDP effectively. I think the CRM use cases will also give us another lever to being able to get users engaged. So I think there's good stuff in the works there, but seeing the numbers this week was a bit disappointing. And then also one that's kind of a mixed blessing, both a highlight and a low light. We got our first customer support request this week. It is from a client that actually wanted to have access to GDP because he heard that it will help him accelerate getting into the gate. And so he requested access through GDP. Through some of the back and forth that we had with Nkwashi, it took quite a while to be able to validate the account and get him the information he needed, and it definitely was a frustrating experience for him. We also have run into some issues just getting an SMS text message sent from our system and getting it through Zamtel. There are things that for some reason we think that we're being blocked there, and so it's been a bit of an issue trying to get that set up, and there's definitely a lot of learning going into it. But I'm glad to have a customer support request, and I also am glad we do have an account for him now. We have worked through it all. At this point, we're just waiting on verification to hear that he actually will get up and running in the system. So that's it for highlights and lowlights. Going into next steps, we have our sprint planning meeting tomorrow. Like I said, we're not very far ahead in terms of goal setting on sprints yet. I hope to be further ahead in future sprints, but some of the things that I know are high on the priority list are going to be getting the showroom kiosk deployed and out, getting it in the hands of customers, building out some of the use cases around the 360-degree view of clients, hiring, and just figuring out both how do we respond to these candidates? What does our interview process look like? What are our criteria? Excuse me, just getting all of that set up and running. And then just figuring out how to take advantage of the integration with Greenhouse and promoting these on the boards is a lot to be working on. And then more on the sort of process and operations side of the business, we'll start looking at end-of-year accounting and taxes to get a better handle on those things and get ahead in terms of what we need to have going on our finances. So that's it for this week's update. I know this was quite a lot in one update, but trying out a new format here, and very glad to be talking with you. Thanks for watching. Please post comments, questions, and looking forward to being in touch. Bye-bye.